It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to At Bathurst Street, Makhanda by Christine Dixie, the show we're featuring here in our gallery at 33 Twickenham Avenue. Dixie has long since been working with settler histories and their impact on the present. A notable early work was her Bloodspoor, made in 1997 when she was living in the small town of New Bethesda. Engaging with histories of colonial settlement and how they shaped the Eastern Cape landscape. It was a work that Brenda Atkinson described in a review when it was first shown as engaging with, and I quote, the politics of vision and desire as it's played out in picturesque representations of the Eastern Cape, a region fraught with and scarred by frontier wars of ingenious brutality, unquote. Bloodspoor is also in many ways a meditation on the artist's own place within South African histories and a critical engagement with culpability. As Dixie explained, and I quote, I was thinking about my place within that history and how my 1820 settler ancestors were to some extent responsible for the violence that took place in the region, unquote. Bloodspoor makes this link evident by including photographic portraits of Christine Dixie's ancestors, Philip and Emily Dixie, a couple who numbered among the 1820 settlers in the Eastern Cape. Amongst a settler party of 66 families from the same parish who arrived on the Aurora and disembarked in Algoa Bay and then founded the small community of Salem. Dixie's ancestors, like so many other 1820 settlers, would find themselves ill-equipped to cope with the demands of establishing and maintaining a farm in a remote area in South Africa with an unpredictable climate, harsh and untractable soil, and no developed infrastructure. Relocating to Grahamstown, some 20 kilometers away, they opened a haberdashery store in Bathurst Street. This fact that her ancestors once opened a haberdashery shop in Bathurst Street in what was then Grahamstown but is now Makhanda was the starting point for this new series. There's a wonderful irony in the title of the work and in the location itself. Lord Henry Bathurst, after whom the street is named, was the British Secretary of State for War and Colonies when Lord Charles Somerset, Governor of the Cape, approached him about settling British subjects in such a way that they might form a barrier between the Cape Colony and Amakosa territories. This had become urgent, he felt, with the onset of the Fifth Frontier War in 1818. The Fifth Frontier War included the Battle of Grahamstown in 1819, when Makhanda, a prophet, led an abortive attack on the city. But while Lord Bathurst's name is still commemorated in one of its key central streets, the name of the city itself has changed from Grahamstown to Makhanda. That is, to the name of the man who had in fact attempted to take down British colonial oppressors working under the aegis of Lord Bathurst. Ironies and a particular convergence of past and present are played out further in the imagery in At Bathurst Street, Makhanda. Christine Dixie has focused on various storefronts, which she represents via woodcut, but in a style that imitates the kind of engravings that figured in newspapers such as the Illustrated London News in the 19th century. In other words, she uses a style associated with the conveying of information from the colony to the metropole in the 19th century. But through the insertion of a digital print, she couples this with a mirroring of the environment through the eye of a cell phone camera, which establishes a different kind of discourse and is associated with the sharing of images on Instagram and Facebook. In other words, a more contemporary transmission of information from one geography to another. We see traces of its colonial history merging with motifs and signs associated with the present. Bits of brookie lace trellising or 19th century stonework or brickwork merge with more recent additions. From the perspective of the colony, British settlers provided a genteel, civilizing influence. But now, hilariously, their structures are overlaid with advertisements for abortion and penis enlargement. And if it was imagined that the colonists could possibly form a protective barrier against Amakosa people, here the structures they created are in need of security gates and alarms. Dixie has long since worked with the politics of the gays and with the colony as an abode of scrutiny and policing. The panopticon, conceptualized by Foucault not simply as a mode of exerting control in the context of a prison, but also a broader form of social control, is invoked in the motif of the observatory with its camera obscura. And it forms an ironic counterpoint to the cell phone camera, a contemporary device for scrutiny. Christine Dixie has never found out where exactly in Bathurst Street Philip and Emily Dixie established their haberdashery store. But their role in prompting this engagement is invoked through the needle and cotton stitched onto a number of the prints. Using the materials of haberdashery, the needle also suggests pain and wounding. But at the same time, it highlights the uneasy suturing of the past onto the present, and how complicated histories shape and form present realities. It ultimately reminds us that, in the words of William Faulkner, and I quote, "The past is never dead. It's not even past," unquote.